Okay, again, you should have a worksheet that goes with this. This is for, should say, 8.2 practice A on the top, so 8.2. And you're going to notice at the top of the worksheet there's a box that says in general in it. And so we're going to put some basic stuff inside that box so that you have something to go back and look at. So let's look at the first one there. It says x squared times x to the fourth. Recall from yesterday, when you're multiplying, you're going to add your exponents. So that's going to give you x to the sixth. You add your exponents. Right below it, you got x squared raised to the fourth powers. Powers to powers, you're going to multiply. So you're going to have x to the eighth power. Okay, next to that, we have something that's new. X raised to the negative second power. That negative exponent, you're going to put it in the other part of the fraction. You're going to do like the reciprocal. So x to the negative second will become 1 over x squared. So we no longer have the negative on that exponent, but the x squared now is in the bottom of the fraction in the denominator. Now, if you look at the one right below it, we have 1 over x raised to the negative 3 power. So again, that negative exponent's like the reciprocal. So this will become x raised to the third now on the top of the fraction. Notice it's a positive now, x raised to a positive 3. And that, of course, could just be the same as x to the third. So the negative exponent puts the term in the other part of the fraction. The last new stuff today, the first one says x to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. Anything to the 0 power is equal to 1. So if I have 4,285 and I'm raising it to the 0 power, it's equal to 1. Okay, so then right below that we have 3 example problems. Let's do these ones together. This one says simplify or evaluate the exponential expression. Well, first of all, 2 raised to the negative fourth power. The negative 4, that exponent of negative 4, is going to put the 2 now in the denominator, and so it's just going to be 1 over 2 to the fourth power. Well, we can simplify that. 1 over 2 to the fourth power is 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's going to be 16. Multiply 2 together 4 times. But that negative exponent, in this case, put it in the bottom of the fraction. The next one, we have 3 squared raised to the negative third power. This will become 3 raised to the, again, 2 times negative 3. Powers to powers and multiply, I'm going to get negative 6. So 3 is now raised to the negative 6. Okay, again, that negative exponent is going to put in the other part of the fraction, so that's going to be 3 raised to the positive 6. And I can simplify that a little bit farther. I'm going to plug it in my calculator here. And if I take 3 and raise it to the 6th power, I'm going to get 729. So then this will become 1 over 729. My last example here, I've got negative 7 raised to the negative first. Now notice the negative in front of that 7, since the whole thing, that whole thing there, is being raised to the second power, that negative, the one in front of the 7, is also being raised to the second power. It's also being squared. So a negative times a negative will be a positive. So right now, that negative will disappear. So we're just going to end up with 7 raised to the negative 1 to the second power. Multiply your exponents, negative 1 times 2, that's going to be negative second. Okay, so then raising that 7 to the negative second power, it's like putting the 7 into the denominator, raised to the positive 2, and we can simplify that. That'll be 1 over 49. Okay, if you take a look and flip the paper over, you're going to see a couple more examples. Okay, and the first of these say rewrite with only positive exponents. Okay, so example 4, we have 4 and then x raised to the negative 6. Only the x is raised to the negative 6. The 4 is not. So the 4 will be in the top of the fraction in the numerator, and the x to the 6th will be in the denominator, and notice it's now x raised to a positive 6. Okay, right below there, we have 4x, and that whole thing is being raised to the negative third power. So we're going to have 1 over both the 4 and the x are raised to the third. Notice I left the negative off the 3 on that exponent. Now we'll simplify it a little bit farther. I'll have 1 over 4 to the third power is going to be 4 times 4 times 4. That's 64. And x is also raised to the third power. So I'm writing them without negative exponents. Okay, right below that you have example number 6. Mine's over on the side here. The 5 is not being raised to an exponent, it's just a 5. And then I have x to the 0. X to the 0 is just 1. I don't even need to write it. Okay, it's out of there. All right, then my y raised to the negative 4th that's in the bottom of the fraction, that's now going to go into the other part of the fraction, which means it's going to go on top. So I'll have y to the 4th on top of the fraction with the 5. Notice the y is now raised to a positive 4. So this whole thing is over 1. Or I could just write it as 5y to the 4th. Again, the negative exponent puts the term in the other part of the fraction. If it was on the denominator, it now goes on top in the numerator. Right, there's a couple more examples there. Okay, example 7, the 2, that's not got any exponent to it, so that's going to stay in the numerator. But the x is being raised to the negative 2nd, so that's going to be put in the denominator. Notice now it's positive 2, so x raised to the positive 2nd, and the y to the negative 3, well, that's also going to be put in the denominator, so y to the positive 3 will now be in the denominator. So you're just going to get 2 over x squared times y to the third. And our last example here, both the c is raised to a negative exponent and then the d is raised to a negative exponent. So basically they're just going to change places. The d is going to move up to the top. It's raised to the positive third power. The c is going to move to the denominator. It's also raised to a positive exponent. They just switched spots. Again, that negative exponent will make it move to the other part of the fraction. So I'm just going to throw one last example on here, example number 9. Let's say that I had 3x to the second over y to the negative 4th. Okay, the 3 and the x squared aren't going to go anywhere. But the y to the negative 4th, that's now going to come up to the numerator. It's going to become positive. If you want to put it all over 1, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. We can just write it as 3x squared times y to the 4th. Okay, good luck there.